Well, hello again. It's Mike from Music City, and we're here now with what is our fourth installment of Rankin Records. We're going to do it a little differently today. We're going to look at some things about a band from a historical perspective first, a little bit before we get into ranking. And the reason is that you're going to see there's really not that many records to rank. The subject of today is the band Rockpile. And I'm sure a lot of you know, but for those of you who don't, Rockpile was a band in the late 70s, 80s that was really the showcase for two great artists, Nick Lowe and Dave Edmunds. And they were also backed by a great singer-songwriter named Billy Bremner and a great drummer named Terry Williams. And one of the things about Rockpile is they were perhaps one of the greatest live bands ever. I mean, and that's without exaggeration. And one of the common threads you see a lot on Facebook today is people listing concerts they've been to and concerts they liked and didn't like. And one of the categories that you often see is band that you wish you could have saw. And it seems that Rockpile shows up quite a bit on that list. And I'm very fortunate. I seen a total of 5 Rockpile shows, which is certainly not enough. I wish I could have seen a lot more. Some of those shows were pretty historic, and I'll touch on some of those as we go through. But anyway, where did Rockpile start? Well, not here. Strange enough, this is an old, early solo album by Dave Edmunds, where he titled the album Rockpile, and about all that has to do. That's where the name of the band came from. Was that early album, and Lowe and Edmund started working together, and they found themselves in an unusual situation when they had gotten the band together, Rockpile. And let's jump ahead here. The first time they got together was actually for this record, and it's a great Dave Edmunds record called Tracks on Wax 4, and I believe this was 1978. And at the time, Edmunds was signed to the Swan Song record label, which was Led Zeppelin's label. And interestingly enough, I believe it may very well be the first tour that Rockpile ever did was as a support act in a arena setting for the band Bad Company, who was also on Swan Song. But Nick Lowe, his main partner in Rockpile, was signed to a different label. And here in the States, he was signed to Columbia, and over in England, he was associated with his manager Jake Riviera, and was with both Radar Records, and eventually became an F-Beat Records. So both having these separate contracts, what had happened was that they each would have their own recording, contract fulfillments, and these Rockpile albums got recorded either as Dave Edmunds records or Nick Lowe records. And I mentioned the first, Edmunds Tracks on Wax 4, and then the next record was a Nick Lowe record, and one of his most famous records, Labor of Lust. So these are the first 2 Rockpile albums. Now continuing this thread, the third album by Rockpile was a Dave Edmunds record, and that was the great Repeat When Necessary. We're going to talk about these albums a little bit later when we get into the ranking. And they toured pretty heavily around this time. I got to see my first Rockpile show when in 1978 they opened up for a triple bill tour that was Elvis Costello and the Attractions, Mink DeVille, and the opening act was Nick Lowe's Rockpile. When Edmunds had an album out, they would call it Edmunds Rockpile. So Lowe's Rockpile was the openers, and I just said my recollections of that too were not being very familiar with Edmunds per se. I remembered he had the big hit in I guess it was the late 60s when his version of I Hear You Knockin' was a big hit in America. But he had sort of got a reputation of being kind of a recluse, and I just kind of remember, vaguely in the back of my mind, this image of this scruffy old guy, really not doing anything other than playing guitar. I mean, it was all we heard all Nick Lowe songs, mostly all Nick Lowe songs for those sets, and a lot of times Edmunds was towards turned around, not even facing the crowd, but that would change a little bit, much more as the band evolved. And then you know, I remember, let's see, the next time I saw them after that was one of their most famous shows, and this was, I believe, in support of Tracks on Wax 4, where they played the Bottom Line in New York, and I was really busy at the time and wasn't going to a lot of shows, and made the rare exception of going to see Rockpile because I loved him so much, and going to the Late Show. And it happened to be this famous show where Keith Richard had just won his drug trial in Toronto, got off the plane and came right to the Bottom Line, and he came on stage at the very start of the show to play with Rockpile. Now, if you listen to the King Biscuit Flower Hour recording, they put it at the end to make it more dramatic as an encore, but no, Keith came out at the beginning. He was pretty wasted. It was pretty much of a mess, and if you go to my blog, musiccitymike.net, I've written up about that experience, and also I reference you to a great recollection of that night by Nick Lowe. Let's stick with the live shows. Was very disappointed about 2 Rockpile shows that I didn't see, that I wish that I should have saw. They toured in '78 as the opening act for Van Morrison, and I had a front row ticket for Sunday night in New York at the Palladium Theater. Well, that Saturday night, Van Morrison was on Saturday Night Live, and he was just awful. It was the only time I've ever seen on Saturday, well, it may have happened, but at the time, I'd never seen it happen on Saturday Night Live before, where he just kept going on and on and on. It was just dismal performance, and they actually went to the commercial. So I don't know what was going on with Van at the time, but at whatever reason, he canceled that Sunday night show the following night at the Palladium, where I had the front row seats for Rockpile. So it took me a long while to forgive Van for that. Then the next time, you know, shortly thereafter that, Rockpile toured as a support act for Blondie. And I had front row seats for Blondie, and I never had seen Blondie before. The show was in Asbury Park at the Convention Hall, and Rockpile was the opening act on every show of that tour, or most of them, except for the one in Asbury Park. While Blondie was playing at Convention Hall, Rockpile played up the street at a club called the Fast Lane, and had never seen Blondie having these great seats. I went and saw Blondie, and I don't know, maybe I should have went to the Fast Lane. Why did that happen? I don't know. A lot of it, at the time, word was going around that you know, Nick's notorious manager, Jake Riviera, wasn't getting along with John Shear, who was the promoter of the Blondie concert at the Fast Lane. He did all the shows in Jersey. So, you know, whether that is true or not, another time I missed Blondie, but I missed Rockpile. But I did see him a few days later. They opened for Blondie again at Belmont Racetrack. So we went to the horse races and then got to see those 2 bands after that. And one more show to mention, and you can see that green poster in the back there, was a Nick Lowe poster, and that was a big show that they played at the Palladium in New York. It was, I think it was also a King Biscuit on the radio. David Johansen played with them, John Cooper Clarke. It was a really big show for them. They had really made it, and it was a big night for them in New York, and a great show. Well, so we saw these 3 records that they did, you know, under the names of Lowe and or Edmunds. Well, guess what? Finally, they get to use their own name on a record, and I think this was 80 or 81. Here it is, the only album by the band Rockpile, and it was a nice little gatefold, some cool pictures inside. And I guess what was kind of neat about this was, you know, Billy Bremner, the rhythm guitar player, who was a great, like I said, a great artist in his own right, got to sing a few songs on this record. And so that's that. And one of the bonuses that came with that record was this EP, Nick Lowe and Dave Edmund sing the Everly Brothers. I think a lot of us, for some reason, would call it the Beverly Brothers. I think it was from a Capitol radio show in BBC. You know, 4 songs, free EP came with the album. And while we're on that album, and to give you a good look at this handsome band, a few years later, Demon Records in England re-released the same Rockpile album with this different cover, but here you can see the band, Lowe, Edmunds, Terry Williams, the drummer, and Billy Bremner, the rhythm guitar player. As I mentioned, Bremner went on to have a solo career. Of course, Nick and Dave continued to do solo work. Terry Williams went on to be the drummer in the band Dire Straits. Now, here's something for you. People say, why not a Rockpile reunion? Well, number one, Nick wouldn't want to do it. That's not the kind of style of music he's been playing lately. We're going to do a Nick Lowe feature at some time. We'll save that for later. But both Edmunds and Terry Williams have retired from music. I mean, they're up in the years. I think there's been some health issues. Bremner, on the other hand, still tours. And I see a lot of activity on Facebook. He calls his band Billy Bremner's Rockpiles. I believe that's what it is, Rockpiles, where they do sort of a Rockpile tribute band. Most of the shows are in Scandinavia, Europe. You know, whether he would ever make it this way, we don't know. But we're going to come back and rank the 4 Rockpile records as our wrap-up. But for now, I just want to look at a few other little tidbits with the band Rockpile. Well, one of the things that they did was they backed Carlene Carter on her Musical Shapes record. And nice autograph to me from Carlene. At the time, Carlene was married to Nick. As you know, Carlene was Johnny Cash's stepdaughter. And it's just a great, great, great record. You know, Carlene just really had a thing for, you know, for pepping up, you know, country music. She was very innovative at the time and really made some great records. Wrote a lot of great songs together with Nick while they were together. This is just a great record. And the stellar track on this record was this single, Baby Ride Easy, which is a duet that she did with Dave Edmunds. And here on the back of this sleeve, look, here's a nice little picture of Carlene with the guys from Rockpile. So again, this goes down in the book. Musical Shapes goes down in the catalog as one of the albums Rockpile was on. And they did this one other time. Well, for only half a record, and that's the stiff recording artist Mickey Jupp. His record Japanese side 1 was Mickey backed by Rockpile, and it was produced by Nick Lowe. Now, if you look up in the corner there, see that poster there? That's the poster for the Be Stiff tour. That was over in England, and it came to New York for 1 week at the Bottom Line. I got to go to a couple of those shows, and Mickey Jupp was a part of that touring entourage, but did not come to the States because he does not fly, and there was not enough time for the boat to get him to come over. So, again, good record. You know, sort of maybe you would say it's in a pub rock sound, but again, half of this record is with Rockpile. Matter of interest, the other side was produced by Gary Brooker, you know, of Procol Harum fame. Now, where is the last recordings that Rockpile ever did together as a band? Well, I really can't get real certain on this, but I know that with this Edmunds album that came out in '81 is marked as the last thing that Rockpile ever did. According to the All Music Guide, they say 9 of the 11 tracks on this were recorded with Rockpile. I really can't have any way of verifying yet. I know, you know, one of the songs on here is "The Race Is On," the old George Jones song where Edmunds is backed by the Stray Cats, who he was producing at the time. So we know it's not that one. Really just, you know, really just can't get the complete lowdown on that. Maybe somebody out there can fill that in. Couple of little more things before we rank those final 4 for you. In '80, we had the Concerts for Kampuchea benefit concert in London. A lot of great artists played there. It was put together by Paul McCartney. And Rockpile does appear on the record. And what do they do on the record? They do, Edmunds does Crawling from the Wreckage, which was a Graham Parker song that he, I think it was on repeat when necessary. And they also did something cool, and you probably have seen the video if you watched a lot of MTV. There was a video accompanying that, both this record. And they did Little Sister, and the fronting Rockpile at the time was Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin. So sort of the Swan Song guys get together there. But nice to have in your collection. I mentioned there too is a video out there. Speaking of videos, if you want to really catch up on Rockpile, I'm pretty sure you can find this stuff on YouTube. There's a great documentary about the making of Nick Lowe's Labor of Love Labor of Lust record, called Born Fighters. You need to see that. And also, there's the German TV show Rockpalast, P-A-L-A-S-S-A, Palast, I can't spell, where there's a full Rockpile concert. I'm pretty sure you can find that on YouTube as well. And also, a few years back, they did release a live CD called Live at Montreux. This was live at the Montreux Jazz Festival in 1980. Very essential for you to have. So, I had a lot of things I wanted to say, and I think I said them all. Again, truly one of my favorite all-time bands. Love listening to all their recorded work. Love listening to their live shows. I don't know if you're out there in the world of trading. Well, we don't trade anymore, but if you go to file sharing sites such as dimeadozen.org, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that or not. There's quite a few Rockpile FM shows out there from the U.S. tour that are really tasty, are very enjoyable to listen to as well. But let's rank those 4 Rockpile albums, and we'll start at the bottom, number 4. Number 4 is going to be the Rockpile record, and something's got to be at the bottom. Some good cuts on here, but again, I don't know. Maybe sort of the spark was starting to wane in the band at the time. Like I said, it's not a horrible record, but I think I'm just going to put it at the bottom. I did see them. They did tour as Rockpile, and I had moved to Texas at the time, and in 80, I guess it was 80 or 81, I can't remember. I did get to see them at a very special venue. I saw them at the Armadillo World headquarters in Austin, Texas, and they did a great show. And I remember Moon Martin, who another artist I really enjoy, opened up for him. There's some good stuff on here. Teacher was the sort of was the single on the record. Pet You and Hold You. When I Write the Book, something that still Nick does in his live shows today. So we'll put that at 4. Number 3, we're going to go with Repeat with Necessary, the great Dave Edmund's record, and I'm getting old. Yes, Crawling Run the Wreckage, of course, was on there. This is the inside cover, and some great songs. And Queen of Hearts is one of, I guess that's a Hank DeVito song. Rodney Crowell had done it. Edmund's version is just killer. Some great drumming on it by Terry Williams, and one of the great songs on here, of course, is Girls Talk, written by Elvis Costello, something he probably gave to Edmunds a little hasty and wish he kept for himself. He's, of course, recorded it later on himself, but Edmund's version is just is the one, and it was a pretty neat time back in 1980 because for this reason. And, well, we'll skip ahead. Well, a little bit. What I was going to say here is that there was a time when listening to FM radio, and, I'm talking about playlisted FM radio where, it wasn't a wide open field. There was the selection of songs they played was narrowed, but there was a time where you would hear 2 Rockpile songs on the radio in pretty heavy rotation. One of them was Girls Talk, and the other was Nick Lowe's Cruel to Be Kind, which we'll get to that record in a little bit. But number 2 is going to be Tracks on Wax 4 by Dave Edmunds. This is a fantastic album. What the one was I thought for a minute of having a tie for number 1, but I figured you wouldn't. That would be copping out. But Trouble Boys, what a great song, written by Billy Bremner, and in the live shows, Billy would get to sing his song, which was really cool. One of my favorite Nick Lowe songs ever, Never Been in Love. Kind of a great country song. Just a great record. I want to take a look at the label here and make a shout out to someone here in particular, and just make sure I get this right. Co-write with the great Will Birch and one of my favorite bands of records on a great song called A1 on the Jukebox. And it's also got Nick Lowe's Heart of the City. Just a fabulous record, and really got a lot of airplay, in New York, and really put Dave on a lot of people's radar. But number 1, Nick Lowe, Labor of Lust. I just have a real fondness to this record. His first record, which didn't feature any Rockpile except on one live cut of Heart of the City, Jesus of Cool, in the UK. In the US, it was Pure Pop for Now People, was just such a great record. And this was just a super follow-up again. Had that hit record of Cruel to Be Kind, you know, probably the song, that and Peace, Love, and Understanding, and two songs that Nick's best known for. Cruel to Be Kind was an old Brinsley song that he did great on this record. But I mean, look at the stuff on here. Cracking Up, Switchboard Susan, Without Love, that Johnny Cash later recorded, Born Fighter, American Squirm, you know, kind of Nick really picking up a little bit of a country twang in this, but something like Switchboard Susan would be something you would hear in a dance club in New York back in the day. But again, my number one Rockpile album would be Nick Lowe's Labor of Lust. Well, that's it. This was a lot of fun. I hope you found it interesting. I'd love to hear your comments. It's just such a fascinating band. I hope you enjoyed the bit of history, my concert recollections, and let me know what you think about rating those top 4 Rockpile records. And please let me know if there's anything about the band that I missed that you had. Put it down in the comments. And please subscribe. Please tell me what else you'd like to see. We're happy to do these things. Have a great day.